So now we're in Unit 2B. We just did parallel and perpendicular lines not too long ago, so hopefully that's still somewhat fresh in your memories. When we have parallel lines, we are looking for something that has the same slope. So for 57, if we are looking for something that has the same slope or the slope of this line that is parallel to it. I'm going to write my formulas one more time. Actually, a couple more times. For this equation, it's an x equals, so this would be an undefined slope. If it's parallel, this would also be an undefined slope. So our slope here would be undefined. Questions on that one? For perpendicular lines, you need negative reciprocal slopes. So if we have whatever we have for 1, we have to take that, flip it, and make it negative if it was already positive, and vice versa. So for 62, we already know that the slope of this line is undefined. If we're looking for a perpendicular slope to that, it has to be the opposite. The opposite slope of an undefined slope is 0, even though it's not negative. So 0 and undefined are perpendicular, and we have to remember that. Questions on 62? Kevin? How do we do what? So think of this as something over 0. So like, let's say I had a negative over 0. This would be undefined. But then 0 would be the opposite of that. And I would need to simplify both. For 65, the 2 we're going to do, we don't need to use the point slope formula, but the others you would. In this case, we are given a point and given an equation. We have to find an equation that is parallel to the one given. So if it is parallel, that means the slope has to be the same. The slope of this line is undefined. That means our new line also has to have an undefined slope. If our new line is also undefined, or the slope is undefined, that means it also has to be an x equals. So we have to look at our x value to see what that x is, and write that as our equation. So for problems like these, where you have undefined as your slope, there's not really work to do. It's a lot of you remembering and knowing, or being able to draw out what type of line this would be. Do we have any questions on 65? $67 is similar. Except now we have a y equals, but it has to be perpendicular to this y equals. The y equals has a slope of 0. But it needs to be perpendicular to that, so it has to be the opposite. So if it's perpendicular to 0, the opposite of that would be undefined. our new slope that we're working with is now undefined, there has to be an x equals, so we have to look at our value of x and write that as our. If this were the opposite and it said perpendicular to x equals 0, then we could say our slope is undefined. The perpendicular slope would be 0. Then if we wanted to, we could put this point and our slope into our y minus y1 equals x minus x1. If it were the opposite. But because it's like this, we can't put undefined slopes in that format. It just won't work out. We can't multiply it out. Do we have any questions on 67? Or other questions we want to go over on this page? So for this, we know the slope of this line is negative 1/3. It needs to be perpendicular to that. So our perpendicular slope would be taking this, flipping it, it's already negative, so we make it positive, 3/1, or just 3. And then we would use that slope in our point slope formula and find our equation. So this would be y minus our y1, 5, equals our slope of 3 times x minus our x1, which is 3. And then we would multiply or distribute. So y minus 5 equals 3x minus 9. And then add 5 to both sides. So y equals 3x minus 4 would be perpendicular to y equals negative 1/3 x. Any other questions on this page? Daniel. This is going to be solved similarly, except now it's asking for something that's parallel. So if it's parallel, whatever this slope is going to be the same. So your slope is going to be negative 2. And then you're going to use this formula with your point and your slope to put all of those things in. So this would be y minus 5 equals our slope of negative 2. Then in parentheses, x minus our negative 2. Or you can change that to a plus now. I'm going to do that next. So y minus 5 equals negative 2 times x plus 2. Then we can distribute the negative 2. So y minus 5 equals negative 2x minus 4. And then add 5 to both sides. So y equals negative 2x plus 1 is parallel to y equals negative 2x minus 1. Any others on this page? The next page, you need your calculator, so if you don't have that, go grab it. The 69 on this was a typo, so ignore that. We're going to do number 72. Now, the way this program made these problems, this gave you your equation already, but we're still going to go through the process of actually finding this and then using it and all of that. So, with problems like this that have years, anytime you have years, you're going to change the first year to be 0, no matter what. That's going to be your given 0. Every year after that is how many years has it been since? So from 2001 to 2006, it's been 5. 2001 to 2007, it's been 6. 2001 to 2009, it's been 8. 2001 to 2011 has been 10. And then from 2001 to 2013, it's been 12. So in our calculators, we are going to put this data in. So we're going to go into Stat, next to the arrows, and go into Edit by hitting Enter. If you have numbers in your calculator, go up to the top of L1 and L2, hit Clear, not delete, but Clear, and then scroll back down and it should disappear. Once you've cleared out both of those, go ahead and start putting your numbers in. Your years go in L1, then the marriage licenses go in L2. So 0, 5, 6, and then your marriage licenses in L2. Once you have all of your data in your calculator, you're going to go back to Stat, and you're going to scroll over to the right to calculate, and we're looking for linear regression. So you can just scroll down. So Stat, scroll over to the right, calculate, number 4. Because this is asking for specific data, like we're going to put data in to figure out certain numbers, we want to store this in our calculator. So we're going to go down to Store Regression Equation, Alpha Trace, and then enter 3 times. After you get to Stat, calculate number 4, scroll down to Store Regression Equation, hit Alpha Trace, and then enter 3 times. And we're going to write down this equation. This did not say what to round to, but 3 decimals are really good. More than that is great. Less than that makes it less accurate. So negative 3992.683 would be good. Our y-intercepts are different because they use the actual years, which means their answers will be a little off. So then for part A, we're looking for how many marriage licenses were issued in 2005. So 2005 was 4 years after the original year. So we're going to put that into our calculator and make our calculator do the work. So after you find your equation, I'm going to type in 4, and then STO, and then X, and then enter. So 4, this STO back on, X, and then enter. And then I'm going to go back and grab the equation I stored in Y1. So if I hit alpha trace and hit Y1 or enter, and then enter once more, it will put 4 in for X and solve that for me. This wants you to round to the nearest 100. So it'd be 130,000 and 100. When you, or if you look at the answer key on Canvas, there'll be 2 different answers. One will be using the equation they had, and one will be using the equation we just found. Both are technically correct. One is just more accurate because it uses more decimals. Part B, we're doing the same thing, except now we need this in 2021. So that is 20 years from the original. So we're going to do the same thing we just did, put 20 in the calculator for that. So if I do 20 STOX and hit enter, 20 is now stored in for X, and then I can go back and grab my Y1 again. I don't know if there's this way where it's hard to do this. Yes. Or you can hit alpha trace and hit enter twice. Both ways work. So then 66,246 or 66,200 since we're rounding to the nearest 100. So on the final, if you do get something like this and want the pink sheet that has the cheat sheet of how to do this, just ask for that. Do we have any other questions on this problem? Or any other problems on this page? The next page is your word problems, the last objective in Unit 2B. So I just have one thing circled, but if you want to see any others, you can go over those. When you get your word problems, find your important things. The 17.25 per hour, in addition to 35. You have to find the total cost. Look at what you're asked to find. Total cost from 9:30 to 2:30. So I'm going to list out some variables because all of these should really be formed in the y equals mx plus b format. So if you know what these variables are, what you're looking for, it may help you kind of set up the others. We are looking for total cost. Your total is usually at the end, your y equals. So we can say this total is y. In our slope-intercept format, our m, our slope, is something per, so $17 per hour. This would be cost per hour. Or it may say for each. Your x in your equation would be what comes next. So usually it's attached to your m, the hour. So it's going to be number of hours. And then your B value is usually something that stays up by itself, in addition to a $35 deposit. So that would be your B. So once we have all of those things, we can start filling in numbers. So y is what we don't know the total cost, so that's going to stay y. M, our cost per hour, would be our 17.25. X, the number of hours, we have to count how many hours this has been, so 10, 31, 31, 32, 12, 31, 5. And then the initial deposit here will be $35. Once we have all that put in, we can put that in our calculator and find what our y value is. Which would be $121.25. Do we have any questions on that one? Or want to see or go over any other problems on this page? If not, move on to the next page. We are now in Unit 3, our systems. In our systems, we're going to jump down to number 80. These can have the same types of solutions as solving equations, so one, none, or infinitely many. So we're going to start graphing these. If I start graphing this first one, I have a y-intercept of -1. I'm going up 3 to the right 2 as many times as possible. And down 3 to the left 2 as many times as possible. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other line. Start at +3. Go up 3 to the right 2, or down 3 to the left 2 as many times as possible. And connect those points. If your lines never intersect, they have the same slope, which means they are parallel. So these would have no solution because they'll never intersect. If they did intersect, they would intersect at one point, and that would be one solution. If they were exactly the same, so let's say these both have the same y-intercept, they would lie on top of one another, and that would be infinitely many solutions. For number 81, these are both in slope-intercept form. We need to convert them. So I'm going to kind of do that both at the same time. Subtract 5x from the first one. Subtract x from the second. We have -y equals -5x minus 3. And the second one is y equals -x minus 3. The first one, you still need to get y by itself, so we have to divide everything by -1. So this equation would become y equals 5x plus 3. These two lines have different slopes, different y-intercepts, so they're not going to intersect. They're not going to overlap, and they're not going to never intersect. So this equation, we would start at positive 3. Our slope is 5, so we can go up 5 to the right one, or down 5 to the left one. And then our other equations, we can start at negative 3. And we're going up 1 to the left one as many times as possible. And down 1 to the right one as many times as possible. And we're looking for where do these two lines intersect? That would be at this point, negative 1, negative 2. We write that as the order of there. Do we have any questions on that one? Do we have any other questions we want to go over on this page? Now we're solving systems by substitution. So for number 84, if you have an equation that's already solved for x or y, we're going to take that equation and put it into the other one where that variable is. And then rewrite it. So this first equation would now be negative 2x plus 3 times negative 3x plus 21, and then equals negative 14. From here, we could start solving for x. So we could distribute negative 2x minus 9x plus 63 equals negative 14. And then combine my terms, start moving things. So this would be negative 11x. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 63 on both sides. That would give us negative 77. And then divide both sides by negative 11. X equals positive 7. But then we have to continue. We have to find our y value. So if we take this x value and put it back in to where y is by itself, we can find y. So y equals negative 3 times our x value, which is 7, plus 21. Negative 3 times 7 is positive 21. I'm sorry, no, this is negative 21, but we're adding 21. And then negative 21 and positive 21 would cancel to become 0. After we have our x and our y, we need to put those together in order for 7, 0 would be our final answer. Do we have any questions on that one? Yes. Okay, we're going to do one more unless anyone wants to see others. Number 88. For this one, we do not have something that's already solved for us. So we're going to have to solve one of these equations so that it equals x or y. I would say look for anything where the variable is by itself. Use that one, solve for that one. So if I'm solving for this one, I'm going to solve for x and get rid of my 5y, and move it to the other side. So I have x equals 5y plus 17. Then everything we did before, the process is the same. So I'm going to take this equation that we saw for x, and I'm going to put it into the first equation where x is. So we have 5 times 5y plus 17 minus 5y equals negative 15. And then we can start solving for y. So distribute. So we get 25y plus minus 5y equals negative 15. Combine your like terms, 25 minus 5 would give us 20y. And I can also move 85 over. That should be negative 100. And then divide both sides by 20. So y equals negative 5. Then we have to go back and find our x value by putting that value in for our y up here. The x equals 5 times negative 5 plus 17. 5 times negative 5 would give us negative 25. And if we add that together, we get negative 8. And then we'd have to put that together as an ordered pair. So negative 8 first, and then negative 5. And that would be our solution. Do we have any questions on that one? Are there any others on this page that we want to see or go over? So we are going to stop there. On, what's today? Wednesday. On Friday, we will start with elimination and continue on from there. Remember that you can work through this on your own. You don't have to, but you definitely can. If you are and want to check yourself, you can check on Canvas. You can come see me before school or after school tomorrow to go through any problems. As well as if you have not taken your tests or need to retake, come see me after school tomorrow or in the morning. Hold on to your final exam review because I only have limited copies.